Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Fatboyz Dynasty podcast. As always, Brant and Bo coming at you, breaking down some incoming rookie running backs this week. Saw most of the wild card playoff games this past weekend. Had some good games, some crazy historical comebacks coming out this week. Couldn't have scripted a better game as Trevor Lawrence put out. So it was a good weekend of football. We got one more game tonight on Monday night. Anyone that's looking forward to that game, well, good for you, because I'm really not looking forward to watching the Cowboys and Tom Brady. Those are two teams that I don't really care to watch. But we're going to get in. We're going to break down a few running backs this week. Next week we're going to do receivers, and then we're going to come back around and we're going to continue to break down some rookies. And we'll definitely cover some free agency in this offseason. So, Bo, you got anything to add, or are you ready to jump into these running backs?
No, not really. I mean, aside from the fact that we only have a few more weeks of football left to enjoy, so while I'm not looking forward to the Monday night game tonight myself either, I will be planted in my chair watching, just to enjoy the last little bit of live action football we have left this year. Because before you know it, degenerates just like you and I are going to be fiending and itching for some live action, be betting money on the preseason games by the time they get back around to us, just because of how much we've missed it. So I'm going to take full advantage of what I have left.
Well, don't forget, man, we got the AFL and the XFL to watch for a few months with Josh
and the
Gordon.
USFL.
Yeah, with Josh Gordon playing in it, and Ben DiNucci will be in there. There's a lot of actual big names in the XFL and the AFL and all those organizations this offseason. They'll be fun to watch. I don't see me throwing too much money at them or trying to get in any of those fantasy leagues with only 8 teams. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump into these running backs. I'll hop straight into mine. My guy, the first one I got is Bijan Robinson. He's the number one running back coming into this draft class. He's 6 foot, 220 pounds. Let's talk about some of his strengths here. He's got great body control. He uses that very well, finding the holes. Great patience and looking for the holes in the line. He uses his momentum very well in his juke moves and his cuts and everything else. He's got great burst. He's got a great burst speed to get through the line and get into the second level. He's got great hands. He's an amazing pass blocker, and his route tree is amazing. Also, he gets out there. There's been times that Texas lined him up there in the slot, out wide. Robinson is an overall back. He's got the pro size for a running back. And his moves are phenomenal. His spin move, his stiff arms, everything else. This is one of the best prospects coming out since Saquon Barkley. Now let's talk about some of his weaknesses, though. He does not have elite speed to take off and get away from some of these defensive backs here in the NFL level. He will get possibly chased down by quite a few backs if he does get a long run. You're not going to see him bursting 50, 60, 70 yards. Odds are he will get tracked down. His rough 40 time was, I think it was 4.45. So we've definitely seen some corners and safeties with some faster times than that. He also, one of the things I noticed while watching film was he had a slight hesitation at the line of scrimmage. Now, I know in college that doesn't mean a whole lot. But in the pro level with the explosion you got from some of those defensive linemen, that may result in some negative carries to begin his career. Like if he hesitates too much, he's going to start his career off with some negative yard runs. But that's something that's able to be taught and really helped turn into better. And being able to use it. And one of the other weaknesses I noticed I talked about his route tree and how they lined him up in the slot and out wide and great route tree. And he's a body catcher, though. He does not catch with his hands. Even when he was lined out wide, he was catching with his body. And that could really hurt people in the NFL, especially with the way these DBs and safeties and linebackers do stick with some of these guys. But overall, this Robinson's he's the best running back on this board. He should be probably the number one pick in most rookie drafts, barring a terrible landing spot I mean, he would have to be in one bad landing spot not to be the 101 in most rookie drafts. I guess in a super flex, you might be able to make a argument for a quarterback to go ahead of him. But overall, Robinson's going to be one guy that he's going to be one of those can't miss prospects coming out this year.
Yeah, so obviously, Brant, I'm in agreement with you and a lot of other people out there that would say that Bijan Robinson's the 101, and there's a massive teardrop between him and the next couple of guys. But with that being said, I just want to pick your brain for a minute. So I still think in a super flex, unless you're in like just a desperate spot where you've got like two really old quarterbacks, I would still think I would make the argument myself for him to be the 101. But what I want to ask is, let's drop Bijan Robinson back in last year's draft class. Where does he fall in last year's class in your mind?
Let's see. I think he's the best running back coming out of last year's draft class as well. I think he would have been the 101 in that class. I don't. It would have been tough between him and Hall, but I still think he's better overall prospect than Hall was coming out. As for the receivers, I mean, we saw Hall and Walker probably 1 and 2 in most leagues. So yeah, I think Robinson probably would have been the 101 last year as well.
I agree with him being the 101 in last year's class as well. Now let's take it back even another year further. Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, those guys. Where does Javonte Williams, where does Bijan Robinson fall in that class for you?
So going into that draft, I probably would have had him and Najee about the same going into that class with the film, everything else. After seeing what Etienne's been able to do in that offense, I think you'd have to make that argument now, but that's 2 years later. I think it would be a 1A, 1B between him and Najee going into that draft. If you look at their tape, their film, what they did in college, what they brought to the pro level, how good they were, I think it'd be a 1A, 1B, and I would give the slight nod to Najee just because we saw him in a full workload, bell cow offense there in Alabama where he was carrying the rock 20 times a game already.
Yeah, I agree with you here, Brant. If you remember right, I had the opportunity 2 years ago to draft either Najee or Etienne in that class, and I loved both of them. I was torn. I almost liked Etienne slightly better than I did Najee, but landing spot I had to take Najee. I do think that if you take Bijan Robinson back to that class, though, I think my decision gets a lot harder. I think he does. He's right there with Najee, neck and neck, depending on where the two of them fell. I would say let's take it back another class, but nobody's supplanting Jonathan Taylor. At least not right now.
No.
But what I do think is interesting, and the guy I'm getting ready to talk about is why I wanted you to go back a couple of years. So if you remember back 3 years ago in that rookie draft, a lot of people would have told you going into the draft that it should have been Jonathan Taylor 101, right? And then the actual NFL draft happened. The Kansas City Chiefs came out of nowhere and picked up Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And what happened? Clyde Edwards-Helaire leapfrogged Jonathan Taylor. He moved up like 5 spots in a lot of rookie mocks. And next thing you know, he's the first rookie off the board. Now, that did not pan out really well for a lot of people who may or may not have done that decision. It worked out great if you had the 102 and the guy in front of you came in and grabbed CEH. Now, the guy I'm going to talk about is a guy that I think has a lot of the same traits as CEH in Jahmyr Gibbs, the junior running back out of the University of Alabama. 5'11", 200 pounds, 20 years old. He'll be just over 20 at the NFL draft, as his birthday is in March. Or just over 21, excuse me. Now, with Jahmyr Gibbs, he's got some good pros, but he's also got some pretty good knocks against him. So he has the potential to be a 3-down back. He has great hands outside of the backfield. He runs hard. He's got breakaway speed. He has quick burst through open holes that his offensive linemen create, and he can hit the edge really quick as well on east to west runs. He does have the explosiveness and that long speed. If this guy gets out in space, you will not see him getting tracked down by defensive backs very often. Now, that's not to say that if they're on a level playing field and the meeting point where they're both running, whatever. But I'm talking if he gets a 3-yard, head start on some of these defensive backs, he's not getting caught. Whereas you could see Bijan Robinson be tracked down. Now, his cons, which are kind of scary, he was never a bell cow in college. He never had that opportunity, whether it was at Alabama this year or his 2 years at Georgia Tech prior to this season. He lacks patience for holes to develop when it's a designed inside run play, and because of his size, again, he's not woefully small, but he's not big by any stretch of the imagination either. So him running in between the tackles is a little bit of a problem. And his pass blocking is average at best. I wouldn't say he's going to come into the league and be the instant best pass blocking running back. It is something I think that could be coached to be a little bit better. And we all know that if you have a fantasy running back, you want that guy to be able to be a decent pass blocker because he's not going to be on third down if he's not. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs has the skill set to be a 3-down running back. But I want people to be careful on this one because Jahmyr Gibbs, first of all, he's a very good running back, and if he goes to the right spot, he's going to have a very good year for fantasy career probably. However, I want people to proceed with caution. If Jahmyr Gibbs goes to a landing spot that is just amazing, whether it be Kansas City, who now we have all kinds of question marks surrounding that backfield, or something like that, you cannot draft this guy in front of Bijan Robinson. While I think Jahmyr Gibbs has a very good season or very good career, I do not think he is going to be anywhere near the playing field of Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson. I'm sorry. So this is something that I think I will preach all offseason after studying tape on Jahmyr Gibbs. I have not studied tape on Bijan Robinson because to this point I haven't felt the need, especially this week knowing, Walker, that you had him. But with that being said, there would have to be very dire circumstances come about for me to flip the script on this one and decide to put Jahmyr Gibbs ahead of Bijan Robinson. So.
Yeah, I watched a few games, a few of Gibbs' games this year, and he looks like an amazing, amazing running back coming out. It's going to be, you could say it's your blue in the face, but it's going to be, if he falls into the perfect spot, you're going to be looking at another Clyde Edwards-Helaire issue where people are going to let this, guy jump him. Well, you can't, but Robinson's a once in a generation. He's a generational talent. I can't say once in a generation because we're starting to see that now, but Robinson's a generational talent. It may take him some time to develop into that role with his team, but Robinson is easily the 101 in my mind. As for Gibbs, I haven't studied a whole bunch of tape on him, but yeah, I do know that he should be solidify as himself as the number 2 running back in this class. Although the guy that I'm fixing to talk about after watching some of his tape and reading some things about him and looking at a little bit, he got me a little more excited to possibly contend for that 102 spot. Right now, I believe most have him in the 3 or 4 spot, and that's Zach Evans out of Ole Miss. And I'm going to hit one of his biggest knocks right off the bat. I normally go strengths first. So he's listed, and this was the craziest thing I think I've ever seen while doing research. I hop on one site and I look up his height and weight. He's 5'11". That one's set in stone. He's 5'11". Go to one side, he's listed as 195. You go to the Ole Miss side, he's listed at 215. And there's multiple other sites that had him at 200, 210. This man is anywhere from 195 to 215. So if he's below 200 when it comes down to that combine or that pro day when he gets weighed in, I'm going to have to say that that's a little bit undersized for a running back at 5'11". I know Ole Miss has him listed at 215, but I don't see him at 215, so he's a little bit undersized. That's one of his biggest knocks right here. But I'm going to go into his strengths, and then I'll get into a few more of his weaknesses. He's got great speed. He just bursts through that line. He's a north-south runner. He runs straight in. He falls forward. He's not going to get you too many negative yard plays. He's outstanding with that. He bursts through that line. He's going to fall forward. He's going to get you the 1-2 yards every carry. He's got great balance. If you don't wrap him up, he's going to find that. He's going to get his footing back, and he's going to take off. And one of the biggest things I saw on film that I absolutely loved is he's got great cutback, and he finds those holes whenever he's going. There's a few games out there where he was going right, and he had to come back. And most running backs, when they go back to the other side of the line, they go all the way around. No, he was dead stopping and cutting back towards the middle of the field and waiting for and finding that block on his cutbacks. He has amazing cutback and uses his momentum very, very well in cutting back and using his moves. He's going to be very shifty and fun to watch. So we're going to go into his 3 knocks. I already said his undersize. I'm going to hit that. I think it's going to be a lot like James Cook. A lot of people had James Cook as undersized coming out. this year because he was under 200 pounds when he weighed in at the combine. This is another guy that you're going to have to wait and see what his actual weight's going to be. One of his other knocks is he doesn't get much, even with his great speed, he doesn't get much separation in the passing game. And we never got to see him utilize that much in the passing game throughout his time at Ole Miss. But when he did, he had amazing hands. He did show the ability to catch the ball there at Ole Miss. Excuse me. I mean, he only had 12 receptions one year, 10 and 8. So he never really got the opportunity to really show what he can do out there. But that once again, we didn't see that with Kenneth Walker, and look how well he actually developed in the passing game with Seattle this year. He had multiple good games there. And then the other thing is he never has seen a bell cow roll. They're in his highest carries on a year, 144 this past year. Yeah, that's lower than the lowest amount that Robinson saw all year, or all 3 years there in Texas. Besides his freshman year, Robinson saw a little less, but the other 2 years weren't even close to 144, and that was the most Zach Evans has seen. He's going to be a day 2 pick guy, and barring going into the right spot, I expect him to fall in the second or third round. If he gets into the right spot and with the good coaching staff, this guy could contend for the 102 in this draft class. It's all going to depend really where he goes and how long it takes him to get and developed. It's kind of like, once again, I keep referring him to James Cook. James Cook fell into an amazing role, but it took him a little while to get into that. And I think you're going to see the same thing with Zach Evans. But once he does, I think he has a good shot at taking over the lead back there. This is a guy that I really like. I think he right now is, like I said, he's listed anywhere between the 3 and the 5th best back in this class. This is a guy to definitely keep your eye on. I will definitely be doing a little more film and research on him as we get closer to the NFL draft. Excuse me.
Yeah, so much like Zach Evans, Brant, the next guy I'm getting ready to talk about, I think these are guys that you're going to be able to get, a little bit later in first rounds of most rookie drafts. And unlike Zach Evans, this guy does have some pretty good tape on pass catching. This is Sean Tucker, the 5'10", 210-pound, 21-year-old out of the University of Syracuse. You have probably done a lot more research on this guy than I have, since you're the Syracuse mascot in real life and all. But nonetheless, this is a guy that a lot of people think is a top 3, top 4 running back in this draft, depending on where he falls. But again, the size is there. So let's talk about some of his pros, and then we'll get into some of his cons. He's got that great NFL size. That's one of the first things. With his size and his ability that he's displayed in college, he does show 3-down back potential. So if he goes into a backfield that there's not already somebody proven to be a really good pass catcher or something like that, this guy could step into a rookie bell cow role. He's got exceptional goal line power. He's a very good back at the goal line, short down distances as well. He has probably, in my opinion, the best pass blocking displayed out of any running backs coming out in this draft. And I think he will start out as an above-average pass blocker in the NFL. And he also has very good contact balance, much like you talked about with Zach Evans. If you're shoulder tackling this guy, it's not going to work out. You're going to have to go low, wrap up on him, and hold on tight. Otherwise, you're going to go for a ride. This guy, watching the tape, reminded me a lot of a more elusive David Montgomery. I know it's really early to put out comps, but as I was watching the film on Sean Tucker, I just could not separate that vision from my head of this being a quicker David Montgomery. So definitely something to keep an eye on there, because David Montgomery has been pretty effective as a fantasy football running back in his time in the NFL. Now, his cons on Sean Tucker, very similar probably to why I feel like David Montgomery. His open field elusiveness and speed are lacking. This is a guy that you're going to see him hit that hole hard, get a instant 3-4 yard carry. I don't know how many times you'll see him bust one for more than 20 to 30 yards. He will be tracked down by not just defensive backs, but also some linebackers. We go back to Isaiah Simmons. That dude ran like a 4.3. So, the speed for Sean Tucker is going to be an issue, and his open field elusiveness. You're not going to see this dude hurdling guys like Najee Harris or Bijan Robinson do. This guy is a lower my shoulder, may the best man win at the point of contact. just to put into context, we talked about Zach Evans a little bit, and I wanted to say this. So Zach Evans in 3 years at Ole Miss had 30 receptions. Now, is that a Zach Evans problem, or is that a scheme problem at Ole Miss? We don't know yet. We'll find out as the combine progresses when he goes through some of those catching drills and what we get out of him. Going into for those of you that have drafts after the preseason, you'll probably get to see a lot of those questions answered early on in his preseason career. But Sean Tucker last year at the University of Syracuse, who again is not a huge dump-off school when it comes to passing to their running backs, he had 36 receptions just this year for 254 yards, 7.1 yards per reception, and 2 touchdowns. So the numbers are there. It shows that he can do it. He's capable of doing it, and I think that will weigh into a GM's decision when they're sitting day 2 looking at him versus some of the other backs when they have needs. So I do think Sean Tucker is a guy that ultimately will be fantasy relevant year 1. Again, much like Zach Evans, it's going to be very dependent on landing spot, whereas Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs are going to go wherever they go, and I think they'll compete year 1 and should be the starters in those backfields. But with all that being said, Brant, today we've ranked these 4 guys, or broke down these 4 guys. I want to rank them. So obviously, I think you and I are both in agreement. Bijan's 1, correct?
Yeah. Before we get too far, I'm going to try to find this clip I watched. You talked about hurdles, and the first thing that popped in my head, there's a clip of Bijan Robinson. I'm going to try to find this clip, and I'm going to get it on the Fatboyz Dynasty podcast page on our Facebook page. When Bijan Robinson hurdles, he doesn't hurdle like you normally would see with Najee. He literally uses his momentum, and he just like high steps over these guys. There's a few clips I saw in his film, and it was just crazy. When you said that, it just like popped in my head, and I wanted to know, I just kind of wanted to put that out there that it was amazing watching him hurdle some defenders. So I'll get back into the rankings. I'm sorry, that one was in my head. I had to ramble it off real fast. As of right now, I got to go Robinson, Gibbs, and then I got to go Evans, and then the guy out of Syracuse there. So those would be my top 4 right now with the 4 we went over.
Yeah, so I think there is some other guys that we're going to break down when it comes to this running back class. And again, like Tyler Algier, who went late in the draft. I mean, if you went and re-ranked last year's rookie class, which I assume you and I will do, Tyler Algier will leapfrog several running backs from that class that were drafted in front of him. And I think that is something you will see with this class outside of the top 3-4 guys. But at the same time, I do think, Bijan Robinson is by far the one. If you take Bijan Robinson out of this class, Jahmyr Gibbs is by far the one in my opinion. So I'm going to go 1A and then like a 1B minus in Jahmyr Gibbs because there is still such a difference between Robinson and Gibbs. And then I have, just because of the body of work in college, I do put Sean Tucker slightly above Zach Evans, although I will say Zach Evans was a better recruit coming out of high school. He was a 5-star recruit, like the number 19 or 20 in his total class. Was supposed to be an absolute stud, and we just never saw that develop. But again, Ole Miss, they've been better the last couple of years, but they're still not back to what they were back in the day. And I do think that if a guy like Zach Evans goes to a bigger school, whether it be a Georgia or an Alabama, he's probably up there higher than where he is now. So I do have Zach Evans at the end of my top 4 right now. Obviously, based on landing spot and that, things will change drastically. And I'm sure when you and I do our first rookie mock draft after the actual NFL draft, it'll be really interesting to see where he falls. But right now, I would have it Robinson, Gibbs, Tucker, and then Zach Evans, which again, like I said, I'm shocked that you don't have Tucker as your number one, since you were on the sidelines cheering him on every week in Syracuse. We need to also put on the Fatboyz page a side-by-side comparison of you and the Syracuse Orangemen for folks to see that resemblance as well. So,
yeah, we're just gonna keep on knocking that one there. But yeah, no, this running back class is going to be fun to watch, see where they land. And I just want to put out there, I'm pretty sure that you and me both were higher on Tyler Algier than most other cast out there going into this season. It may have a lot to do with the fact we both dug a little deeper because he was part of the Atlanta Falcons, same way I dug a little deeper on Walker. But yeah, I know we both had Algier in our top 5 going into this season of rookie running backs coming in. And I know a lot of people were sleeping on him with Cordell Patterson there, but we both saw it a little bit ahead of time. And I know that I grabbed a few shares of him in some of my keeper and redraft leagues. And He's a guy that is going to be fun to watch next year too. There in the Atlanta backfield. So,
Something else I want to put out too, Brant, is I do think at some point you and I will put in our overall position rankings, have them typed up on the Fatboyz page there, potentially the Fantasy Holics page too, if that's something they decide they want to publish. But we do spend a lot of time diving deep on these guys, and I know when you just start throwing stats out over a podcast, it can get kind of dry. So I think we will go through and finish out the top guys at each of these positions here, and then we'll kind of break away from it a little bit and maybe do like one guy here or there as a mix-in with some of our episodes. Just because when you get outside of the top, whatever, if you're in a redraft league, you're not really listening to stats on Joe Smith from Southern Western Tulsa University. So with that being said, I think we will break through the rest of these before we get into some other stuff. There's some really good wide receiver prospects in this class, a couple of really good tight end prospects, and then some more running backs that we have to get through. So just be patient with us as we get through those.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for the tight end prospects. I'm ready to talk about my boy there out of Notre Dame, but that's a name for a different time there. So, yeah, next week we're going to hit out some wide receivers. We'll drop out 4 of them. Talk a little bit more about some of these college players and get us ready to start really getting into our research. But as always, stay hungry.
And stay fat, my friends.